The morning sun peeked through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the bustling city streets. It was a day like any other for Titan Tech, one of the most prestigious tech companies in the region. The towering glass building stood as a symbol of innovation and success, its walls reflecting the sky above. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Candidates from top universities had gathered in the sleek waiting area, each dressed to impress for their final interviews for an exclusive summer internship program. This wasn't just any internship. It was a stepping stone to greatness, a chance to work alongside some of the brightest minds in the industry. Among these hopefuls was Emma Carter, a young woman whose journey to this moment had been anything but easy. Emma came from a small town where opportunities were scarce and dreams often went unfulfilled. But she was different. From a young age, she'd shown a knack for problem solving and a deep curiosity about how things worked. Her teachers noticed her potential early on and encouraged her to pursue higher education. With scholarships and part-time jobs, Emma managed to enroll in a renowned university, majoring in computer science. She spent countless nights studying, coding, and dreaming of the day she'd walk into a place like Titan Tech, not as a visitor, but as someone who belonged. Today was supposed to be that day. Emma woke up hours before sunrise, meticulously preparing for her interview. She ironed her best outfit, a navy blue blazer paired with tailored trousers, and rehearsed answers to possible questions in front of the mirror. Her heart raced with excitement and nerves. This was more than just an interview. It was validation of all her hard work, proof that she could rise above her circumstances and make something of herself. As she left her tiny apartment, she felt a surge of confidence. Today, she thought, is my day. But life has a way of testing even the strongest resolve. Just blocks away from Titan Tech, disaster struck. Emma was riding her old bicycle, her primary mode of transportation since she couldn't afford a car, when the chain suddenly snapped. Before she could react, she lost control and tumbled onto the side of the road, landing face first in a muddy ditch filled with rainwater from the previous night's storm. For a moment, she lay there, stunned, staring at the gray sky above. Then reality hit her like a punch to the gut. Emma sat up, covered in mud from head to toe. Her once pristine blazer now looked like it had been dragged through a swamp, and her shoes squelched with every step. Panic set in as she glanced at her watch. There was no time to go back home, change, or even clean up properly. If she missed this interview, months of preparation would go down the drain. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. Giving up wasn't an option, not today. Summoning every ounce of courage, she picked up her bike, locked it to a nearby pole, and started walking toward Titan Tech, clutching her soggy resume tightly in her hand. As she approached the gleaming entrance of the building, Emma took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy glass doors. The contrast between her appearance and the polished surroundings was stark. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and ambition. People in sharp suits and designer outfits turned to look at her, their expressions ranging from confusion to disdain. Whispers rippled through the lobby like waves. "Who is that?" someone muttered. "Did she fall into a pond?" Another joked, eliciting quiet laughter from those nearby. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she forced herself to keep moving. She approached the reception desk, where a well-groomed woman greeted her with raised eyebrows. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, clearly trying to mask her shock. Emma cleared her throat and said, "I'm here for the internship interview. My name is Emma Carter." The receptionist hesitated, glancing at her clipboard before nodding slowly. "All right, Ms. Carter, please take a seat. They'll call you shortly." Emma found an empty chair in the corner of the waiting room, doing her best to avoid eye contact with the other candidates. They were all impeccably dressed, their resumes neatly printed and tucked into leather folders. Compared to them, she felt like an outsider, someone who didn't belong. Doubts crept into her mind. Why would they choose her over these polished individuals? Would they even give her a chance after seeing her like this? Yet amidst the self-doubt, a stubborn voice inside her refused to give up. She reminded herself why she was here, to prove that talent and determination mattered more than appearances. Minutes passed like hours as Emma waited anxiously. Each tick of the clock seemed louder than the last, echoing in her ears. Finally, a young assistant stepped into the room and called out, "Emma Carter?" Her stomach churned as she stood up, leaving muddy footprints behind her. The assistant led her down a long hallway lined with framed awards and accolades until they reached a large conference room. Inside, seated at the head of the table, was Alexander Reed, the billionaire CEO of Titan Tech. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he exuded power and authority. His piercing gaze met hers, and for a brief moment, Emma wondered if she should turn around and leave, but she didn't. Instead, she walked in, her head held high despite the weight of the situation. Mud dripped from her clothes onto the pristine carpet, and the silence in the room was deafening. Every instinct told her to apologize, to explain herself, but she remained silent, waiting for Alexander to speak. Little did she know, this encounter would change not only her life, but also the lives of everyone involved in ways she could never have imagined. Alexander Reed leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable as he studied the young woman standing before him. At first glance, Emma's appearance was jarring. Her blazer stained with mud, her shoes leaving wet marks on the expensive carpet, and her usually neat hair now damp and disheveled. Yet there was something about her demeanor that caught his attention. Despite the chaos of her entrance, she stood tall, her shoulders squared, and her eyes meeting his without flinching. It wasn't defiance. It was quiet determination, the kind Alexander recognized from his own early days when he'd fought tooth and nail to build Titan Tech. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Alexander placed his pen on the table and folded his hands, leaning slightly forward. "Miss Carter," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I must admit you've made quite an impression already. Care to explain why you're in this condition?" Emma swallowed hard, her grip tightening on the soggy resume she still held. She had rehearsed answers to technical questions, prepared anecdotes about teamwork and problem-solving, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Taking a deep breath, she decided honesty was her only option. "Mr. Reed," she started, her voice steady despite the nerves churning inside her. "I was on my way here when my bike chain broke. I fell into a ditch, and by the time I got up, I realized I didn't have enough time to clean up or change. I couldn't afford to miss this interview, it's too important." Her words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. There was no attempt to sugarcoat the situation, no desperate plea for sympathy, just a straightforward explanation delivered, with quiet resolve. Alexander tilted his head slightly, intrigued. He had seen countless candidates walk through those doors, many of them polished and practiced, yet none had ever walked in quite like Emma. Her story was messy, unexpected, and undeniably human. He leaned back again, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. "You couldn't afford to miss this interview?" he echoed, his tone softer now. "Why not reschedule? Surely we could have accommodated you." Emma hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But something about Alexander's demeanor encouraged her to keep going. "Because this isn't just another opportunity for me," she admitted. "It's everything. I've worked so hard to get here, to prove that I belong in a place like Titan Tech. Rescheduling would mean waiting longer, and I didn't want to lose momentum. I wanted to show you what I'm capable of, even if it meant showing up looking like this." Her vulnerability struck a chord with Alexander. He remembered being in her shoes once, though decades ago. Back then, he hadn't owned a suit, let alone a bike. He'd hitchhiked to job interviews, worn hand-me-down clothes, and faced rejection after rejection because he didn't fit the mold people expected. But he'd refused to give up, driven by a belief that his ideas and work ethic mattered more than appearances. Looking at Emma now, he saw a reflection of his younger self, a person unwilling to let circumstances define their worth. Still, curiosity lingered in his mind. Was her determination genuine, or was she simply trying to charm her way out of an awkward situation? To find out, Alexander decided to push further. "All right, Miss Carter, he said, rising from his seat. He gestured toward the mop leaning against the corner of the room. If you're serious about proving yourself, I have a challenge for you. While we continue this interview, I'd like you to clean up the mess you've made. Can you do that? While answering my questions? Emma blinked, taken aback by the request. For a moment she wondered if this was some sort of test or worse, a dismissal disguised as a task. But then she looked into Alexander's eyes and saw something unexpected. Respect. He wasn't mocking her. He was giving her a chance to demonstrate her character. Slowly she nodded. Yes, Mr. Reed, I can do that. Without hesitation, she picked up the mop and began cleaning the muddy footprints she'd left behind. The movement felt surreal, almost dreamlike. Here she was, mopping the floor of one of the most powerful men in the tech industry, all while preparing to answer questions that could determine her future. Yet, instead of feeling humiliated, Emma found a strange sense of clarity. This was real life, messy and unpredictable, and she was determined to rise above it. As she worked, Alexander resumed the interview, asking about her background, her education, and her goals. Emma spoke candidly, sharing stories of late-night coding sessions, internships at local startups, and her passion for using technology to solve real-world problems. She talked about her dream of developing AI tools to assist people with disabilities, inspired by her younger brother who used a wheelchair. Her enthusiasm was infectious, lighting up the room despite its sterile environment. What impressed Alexander most, however, was how seamlessly Emma balanced the two tasks. She mopped efficiently, ensuring every trace of mud was gone, while maintaining eye contact and delivering thoughtful responses. Her ability to multitask under pressure revealed a level of composure and adaptability that many seasoned professionals lacked. More importantly, she never once complained or showed frustration. Instead, she embraced the challenge, turning what could have been a humiliating experience into an opportunity to shine. By the time she finished cleaning, the tension in the room had eased considerably. Alexander watched her return the mop to its corner, her movements deliberate and confident. Then she turned to face him, her expression calm but expectant. For the first time since she'd entered the room, Alexander smiled. A small, almost imperceptible curve of his lips, but enough to signal approval. "Thank you, Ms. Carter," he said, his voice carrying a newfound warmth. "That will be all. For now. You'll hear from us soon." Emma nodded, bowing slightly before exiting the room. As the door clicked shut behind her, Alexander sat back down, his mind racing. Most candidates came prepared with perfect resumes and rehearsed answers, but few possessed the authenticity and resilience Emma had displayed. Hiring decisions were rarely straightforward, but this one felt different. Something told him that Emma Carter wasn't just another applicant. She was someone special, someone who reminded him why he'd started Titan Tech in the first place. After Emma left the conference room, Alexander remained seated, lost in thought. The interview had been unlike anything he'd experienced before. Most candidates arrived with polished resumes, rehearsed answers, and carefully curated personas, designed to impress. But Emma, she was different. Her muddy entrance had been far from conventional, yet it revealed qualities that couldn't be faked: resilience, authenticity, and a willingness to persevere no matter the odds. As Alexander reflected on their conversation, he realized she hadn't just answered his questions. She'd shared her story, her dreams, and her struggles in a way that felt deeply personal. Still, making a decision wasn't easy. Titan Tech prided itself on its rigorous hiring process, and offering an internship based solely on grit and determination went against the grain. To ensure fairness, Alexander called in 2 members of his executive team, Claire Bennett, the head of HR, and Marcus Liu, the CTO. Both were seasoned professionals who understood the importance of selecting the right candidates for the program. When they entered the room, Alexander briefly summarized what had transpired during the interview, emphasizing Emma's unique response to adversity. Claire raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Alexander, I understand your perspective, but we have standards to uphold. This is Titan Tech, not a charity case. We need someone who can represent the company professionally. Her tone was measured but firm, reflecting years of experience in maintaining the organization's image. Marcus chimed in, his voice tinged with curiosity. I get where you're coming from, Alex. Talent often hides in unexpected places, but do you think she has the technical skills to keep up with the others? This internship isn't just about potential, it's about delivering results. Alexander nodded, appreciating their concerns. He knew they weren't being unfair, they were simply doing their jobs. But he also believed that talent alone wasn't enough to thrive in today's fast-paced world. Soft skills, like adaptability, problem-solving, and emotional intelligence, were equally important. And Emma had demonstrated all of those qualities during her unconventional interview. I hear you both, Alexander said, leaning forward. But let me ask you this. How many candidates would have handled themselves the way Emma did? She didn't crumble under pressure. Instead, she took responsibility, stayed composed, and proved she could multitask effectively. Those are traits that can't be taught. Besides, her passion for using AI to help people with disabilities stood out. That kind of innovation aligns perfectly with our mission. Claire sighed, tapping her pen against the table. You make valid points, but we still need to consider optics. If word gets out that we hired someone who walked into an interview, covered in mud, it might raise eyebrows, not just internally but among stakeholders and clients. Alexander leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Optics matter, yes, but so does substance. Let's not forget why we started this internship program, to find fresh perspectives, untapped potential, and individuals who embody the spirit of innovation. Emma checks all those boxes. And honestly, if anyone questions our decision, I'll take full responsibility. The room fell silent as Claire and Marcus exchanged glances. They respected Alexander's leadership and vision, but his unconventional approach sometimes made them uneasy. After a few moments, Marcus broke the silence. All right, Alex, let's say we move forward with her. What's the plan? Do we treat her like any other intern, or do you have something else in mind? A slow smile spread across Alexander's face. Actually, I do. Hear me out. I want Emma to shadow me directly for the first 2 weeks of the internship. Claire nearly dropped her pen. Shadow you? Are you serious? You haven't done that since, well, ever. Why now? It's simple, Alexander replied. If we're going to take a chance on someone unconventional, I want to see how they operate, firsthand. I also think it'll give her a unique opportunity to learn from the top down, which could accelerate her growth. Plus, it'll send a message to her, to the team, and to the entire company that we value potential over perfection. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. You never stop surprising us, do you? All right, I'm on board. But if this blows up in our faces, don't blame me. Deal, Alexander said, extending his hand. Claire hesitated for a moment longer, but eventually nodded, agreeing to support the decision. With the meeting adjourned, Alexander returned to his desk, already envisioning how this bold move might shape the future of Titan Tech, and perhaps even himself. Meanwhile, Emma sat nervously in the waiting area, replaying every moment of the interview in her mind. Had she said enough? Had she done enough? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she refused to let it consume her. Instead, she focused on the positives, the fact that she'd shown up despite everything, the way she'd handled the mop and interview challenge, and the flicker of approval she'd seen in Alexander's eyes. As the hours passed, Emma tried to distract herself by observing the office environment. Employees bustled around, some typing furiously on laptops, others engaged in animated discussions near whiteboards covered in equations and diagrams. Despite the chaos, there was an undeniable energy in the air, a sense of purpose that made Emma yearn to be part of it all. She imagined herself contributing to projects that pushed boundaries, collaborating with brilliant minds, and bringing her ideas to life. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to dream again. Finally, the receptionist approached her with a warm smile. Ms. Carter, Mr. Reed would like to see you in the conference room. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She stood up, smoothing her now dry but still stained blazer, and followed the receptionist back to the same room where her fate had been decided earlier. When she entered, Alexander was standing by the window, gazing out at the city skyline. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Carter," he began, his tone formal yet inviting. "After careful consideration, we've decided to offer you the internship position. Congratulations." Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment she thought she'd misheard him. I got it," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander nodded, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Yes, you did. However, there's one condition. For the first 2 weeks, you'll be shadowing me directly. Think of it as a crash course in leadership and decision-making. Does that sound acceptable?" Emma blinked, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the opportunity. Shadowing the CEO of Titan Tech. It was almost too good to be true. "Absolutely," she managed to say, her voice steadying. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. I won't let you down." "I believe you won't," Alexander replied, offering her a rare smile. "Now let's get started. There's much to learn, and I suspect you're ready for the challenge." As Emma shook his hand, gratitude and excitement surged through her. This was more than just an internship. It was a chance to prove herself, to grow, and to inspire others who might feel overlooked or underestimated. Little did she know her journey was only beginning, and the lessons she'd gained from working alongside Alexander would change her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Emma arrived at Titan Tech feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had spent the previous evening preparing for her new role, ironing a fresh outfit and reviewing notes on the company's recent projects. This time, there were no bike mishaps or muddy ditches, just a determined young woman ready to seize the opportunity of a lifetime. As she stepped into the building, heads turned, but this time it wasn't because of her appearance. Word of her unconventional interview had spread like wildfire, and whispers followed her as she made her way to Alexander's office. When she entered, Alexander greeted her with a firm handshake and a warm smile. "Good morning, Ms. Carter. Ready to dive in?" he asked, his tone casual yet commanding. Emma nodded enthusiastically, trying to mask her nerves. Over the next hour, Alexander walked her through his daily schedule, a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and decision-making that would have intimidated even the most seasoned professionals. But Emma listened intently, taking mental notes and asking thoughtful questions whenever she could. Her first task came sooner than expected. A senior developer named Ryan approached Alexander with an urgent issue. A critical bug in one of their flagship products had been reported by several clients, threatening to disrupt operations. The problem required immediate attention, and Alexander decided to include Emma in the troubleshooting process. At first, Ryan seemed skeptical, glancing at Emma as if questioning why a newcomer was being brought into such a high-stakes situation. But Alexander quickly put him at ease. "Ms. Carter has a fresh perspective," he explained. "Sometimes, outsiders see solutions insiders might overlook." As the team gathered in the conference room, Emma observed the dynamic between the developers. They debated potential fixes, throwing around technical jargon that would have overwhelmed anyone unfamiliar with coding. But Emma didn't shy away. Drawing on her academic background and past experiences, she began asking clarifying questions, piecing together the puzzle in her mind. When Ryan suggested rolling back the software update to fix the issue temporarily, Emma hesitated. "What if we isolate the specific module causing the problem instead?" she proposed. "That way, we don't risk losing other updates users depend on." The room fell silent as everyone considered her suggestion. Ryan frowned, tapping his pen against the table. "It's possible," he admitted after a moment. "But isolating the module would take longer, and we're working against the clock here." Emma pressed gently, her voice steady. "I understand the urgency, but rushing a rollback could create more problems down the line. If we can pinpoint the exact cause now, we'll save time later and build trust with our clients." Her argument was logical and well-reasoned, and After a brief discussion, the team agreed to pursue her approach. Over the next few hours, Emma worked alongside the developers, diving deep into lines of code and testing variables. It was challenging work, far beyond anything she'd encountered in school, but she embraced the challenge with determination. By late afternoon, they had identified the root cause of the bug and implemented a targeted fix. When news of the successful resolution reached Alexander, he couldn't hide his pride. "You did good today, Ms. Carter," he said, clapping her on the shoulder. "Your input made a real difference." As the days turned into weeks, Emma continued to impress everyone around her. She attended executive meetings, where she listened, to discussions about market trends, financial forecasts, and long-term strategies. During brainstorming sessions, she offered creative solutions that challenged conventional thinking. For instance, when the marketing team struggled to engage younger audiences, Emma suggested leveraging interactive AI tools to create personalized user experiences. Her idea sparked a wave of enthusiasm and led to the development of a pilot program that showed promising results. But it wasn't just her technical contributions that stood out. It was her ability to connect with people. Emma had a natural talent for empathy, often noticing details others overlooked. One day, while shadowing Alexander during a performance review with a mid-level manager, she noticed the employee seemed unusually quiet and withdrawn. Afterward, she pulled Alexander aside and expressed her concern. "He looked stressed," she said. "Maybe we should check in with him privately to see if everything's okay." Alexander raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her observation. "Why do you think that?" "I've been in situations where I felt overwhelmed but didn't want to admit it," Emma replied. "Sometimes people need someone to reach out before they open up." Moved by her insight, Alexander followed her advice. He met with the manager later that week and discovered the man was dealing with personal challenges outside of work. With Alexander's support, the manager was able to adjust his workload temporarily, allowing him to regain balance. The incident reinforced Alexander's belief that emotional intelligence was just as valuable as technical expertise. By the end of the 2-week shadowing period, Emma had become an integral part of the team. Employees who had initially dismissed her as an underdog now sought her opinions and valued her input. Even Claire, the head of HR, softened her stance, admitting that Emma's presence had injected a much-needed dose of innovation and humanity into the workplace. "She reminds me of why we started this internship program in the first place," Claire told Alexander during a casual lunch. "To find hidden gems like her." For Alexander, the experience was equally transformative. Watching Emma navigate complex challenges and inspire those around her reignited his passion for leadership. He realized that success wasn't just about profits and accolades. It was about fostering an environment where people felt empowered to grow and contribute. Inspired by her example, he announced plans to revamp the company's hiring practices, ensuring that candidates from diverse backgrounds received fair consideration. On Emma's final day of shadowing, Alexander called her into his office for a private conversation. "Ms. Carter," he began, his tone serious yet kind, "your 2 weeks are officially over, but I'd like to extend your internship for the remainder of the summer. You've proven yourself invaluable, and I believe you have even more to offer." "What do you say?" Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you sure? I mean, thank you, Mr. Reed, I'd be honored to stay." "Good," Alexander said, smiling, "because I have a feeling this is only the beginning, for both of us." As Emma left his office, she felt a surge of gratitude and purpose. In just 2 weeks, she had gone from being an outsider covered in mud to someone who was making a tangible impact at one of the most prestigious companies in the world. More importantly, she had earned the respect and admiration of the very people she once thought were out of reach. And though she knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way, with courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. As the summer internship progressed, Emma settled into her new role with a blend of confidence and humility that inspired everyone around her. She no longer felt like an outsider. Instead, she had become a vital part of the Titan Tech family. Her colleagues admired her ability to tackle challenges head-on, whether it was debugging complex code, brainstorming innovative marketing strategies, or offering emotional support during tough times. What set Emma apart wasn't just her intelligence or work ethic, it was her genuine care for people and her unwavering belief in the power of collaboration. One of Emma's most significant contributions came when she pitched an idea to improve accessibility features in one of Titan Tech's flagship products. Drawing from her personal connection to her brother who used a wheelchair, she proposed integrating AI-driven voice commands and customizable interfaces to make the product more inclusive. At first, some team members were hesitant, citing budget, constraints, and technical limitations. But Emma refused to back down. She spent nights researching similar initiatives, gathering data on user needs, and creating a detailed proposal that addressed every concern. Her persistence paid off. When she presented her findings to the executive board, including Alexander, the room was silent, not out of skepticism, but out of awe. "This isn't just about adding features," Emma explained passionately. "It's about giving people a chance to participate fully in a world that often leaves them behind. We have the resources and the talent to make this happen. Why wouldn't we?" The project was greenlit within days, and Emma was appointed as its lead coordinator. Working alongside senior developers and designers, she poured her heart into the initiative, ensuring every detail aligned with the needs of users with disabilities. The result was transformative. Not only did the updated product receive glowing reviews from customers, but it also earned Titan Tech recognition as a leader in inclusive technology. For Emma, it was a dream come true, a testament to the fact that empathy and innovation could go hand in hand. Meanwhile, Alexander found himself reflecting deeply on his own leadership style. Shadowing Emma had reminded him of the values he'd once held dear, values that had gotten lost amid the pressures of running a global company. He began implementing changes inspired by her example, starting with the hiring process. Gone were the rigid criteria that prioritized polished resumes over raw potential. In their place, Alexander introduced a system that evaluated candidates based on adaptability, creativity, and character. Internship programs became more accessible, with scholarships offered to students from underrepresented communities. Emma noticed these shifts and couldn't help but feel proud. One afternoon, as she walked past Alexander's office, he called her in for an impromptu chat. "You've made quite an impact here, Ms. Carter," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Not just through your work, but through the way you've influenced our culture. People are talking. You've shown them what's possible when we focus on substance over appearances." Emma blushed, humbled by his words. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. I couldn't have done any of this without your support, and the support of everyone else here." "You give us too little credit," Alexander replied with a chuckle. "But speaking of support, I want to offer you something. When your internship ends, I'd like you to join Titan Tech full-time. You've earned it." Emma's heart raced. A full-time position at Titan Tech? It was more than she'd ever dared to hope for. "I don't know what to say," she stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Of course I'd love to stay." "Good," Alexander said, extending his hand. "Because I have big plans for you." By the end of the summer, Emma's story had become legendary within the company. From the moment she walked in covered in mud to her groundbreaking work on accessibility features, she embodied resilience, determination, and the courage to challenge norms. Employees whispered about her journey during coffee breaks, using her example to motivate themselves and others. Even clients took notice, praising Titan Tech for fostering a workplace culture that valued diversity and innovation. For Emma, the internship had been life-changing in ways she never anticipated. Not only had she gained invaluable experience and secured a promising career, but she had also discovered a newfound sense of self-worth. She realized that success wasn't defined by external validation or perfection. It was about staying true to yourself, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. And while there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead, she knew she had the strength to face them. On her last day as an intern, The entire office gathered to celebrate her achievements. Colleagues shared stories of how she had inspired them, from her fearless problem-solving to her kindness and humility. Claire, who had initially been skeptical, handed her a framed certificate of appreciation, calling her a beacon of hope for future interns. Marcus joked that they might need to rename the building after her, earning laughter from the crowd. As the celebration wound down, Alexander pulled Emma aside for a final conversation. "You've reminded me why I started this company," he said sincerely. "It wasn't just to build technology, it was to create opportunities for people like you, people who see possibilities where others see obstacles." Emma smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. "And you've reminded me that it's okay to be imperfect, that sometimes the messiest moments lead to the greatest opportunities." They stood there for a moment, mentor and protege, united by a shared vision of what the future could hold. As Emma left the office that evening, she glanced back at the towering glass building, now illuminated by the setting sun. It symbolized everything she had worked for and everything she hoped to achieve. What had begun as a disastrous morning months ago had transformed into a story of triumph, resilience, and the enduring power of human potential. For Emma Carter, it was proof that no matter how muddy the path, perseverance and authenticity could pave the way to greatness.